It's Friday again, and that means Questions with Father Luke. I'm Father Luke of Covenant Anglican Church in San Marcos, Texas. And today's question is, should I accept what the Bible has to say? Yes. Yes, you should. Now, I don't say that because I would prefer you to turn your brain off when you come to the Bible. In fact, I think the Bible demands that we use our brains, right? We are called to read, mark, and inwardly digest what we discover there. And so my answer, yes, is indicative of the trustworthiness that I see in the Bible. Now, often those who try to cast doubt on the validity of the scriptures are not familiar with the history of oral tradition, the historical development of manuscript copying in religious communities, or the wealth of ancient biblical documents that are available to us today. There's a guy named Wes Huff, you've probably seen here on YouTube, from Canada, who's done some really amazing work with religious texts and these ancient manuscripts. Now, theologians like to talk about the Bible as God's special revelation. General revelation is like through creation, God revealing himself. Special revelation is God speaking to individuals and through scriptures. Now, so God has used human authors to write the Bible, their particular times, their particular places, with their particular personalities and experiences. And he uses their words inspired by him to communicate something about himself, to reveal himself, his ways to this world. Now, Paul writes to his pastor, apprentice friend named Timothy in 2 Timothy 3. He says that all scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, for training in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, equipped for every good work. And Paul here is emphasizing that God is the source of scriptures. And as such, the scriptures are very useful for helping us to live godly, fulfilled, whole lives, kingdom-reflecting kind of lives. Now, at the time that Paul wrote this right here, when he says God is the source of all scriptures, the New Testament wasn't yet codified, right? It was just the Old Testament. Even then, the teachings of Paul, those letters were getting passed around. The teachings of other apostles were being passed around to other churches, and they were being collected and shared throughout the church. And eventually, they would be codified in a process called canonization. So the early church, or early in the life of the church, rather, leaders would gather, because the early church was not devoid of heresy and mistakes and wrong things, wrong theology. And so these leaders would gather in council to settle theological disputes that had arisen from amongst the different churches and amongst other different teachers. And eventually, in order to combat heresy, the church found it necessary to declare the exact content of the New Testament. So what they did is they weeded out Gnostic writings and pseudo-writings, and they had a whole list of criteria. And some of that criteria for canonicity included at least these three things. The books and letters that would be included had to have apostolic authorship and an endorsement, right? So you had to know who it was coming from, or they were connected to an apostle. Secondly, these documents needed to be received as authoritative by the early church. It wasn't something like, oh, this is a relatively new document that people are seeming to like. No, we want this to have roots here in the early church. The third thing was that these books and letters needed to be in harmony with the books about which there was no doubt at all. We knew this one came from this guy, like Paul, or we knew this one came from this guy. So Christians believe that God used imperfect people and imperfect processes to not only write the scriptures, but to reveal himself, right? And then God also preserved the scriptures in order to reveal himself. So the Bible was written by at least 40 different human authors, ranging from kings to fishermen over a period of some 1,500 years on 3 different continents in 3 different languages, and it all coheres. It tells a single meta-narrative story about who God is, what is wrong with the world, what he is doing to rescue the world, and that one day he will bring his work of restoration and reconciliation and salvation to completion. Now, skeptics will scoff at this idea, right? But those who gather in worship every Sunday, they open the scriptures and they hear the voice of God. And by the Spirit, they are able to see the heart of God for his people and for his world. The Bible is trustworthy. Pick it up for yourself. See for yourself. So if you have thoughts about the Bible and its trustworthiness, share it in the comment section here, or better yet, come visit us on a Sunday and let's connect.